Hey everybody, Isaiah Colton here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about lead generation. Specifically, I'm going to be answering two very important questions. Number one, how do you pick out the right lead generation strategies for your business? And how do you know when to move on to the next one? The reason why this question is so important is because if you don't get your lead generation down right, it's virtually impossible to hit your real estate transaction goal or whatever business that you're in. And so we're going to take a deep dive into this question, and also stay to the end of this video because I'm going to give you access to a private VIP mastermind call that I did where I dove super deep into the topic of lead generation, and you're going to not want to miss it because it's easily a six-figure conversation that we're having in this video. So if you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe to my channel to hear all things about lead generation, sales and persuasion, and business growth, which is my mission to help you with. Okay, so let's dive into the topic of lead generation. In past videos, I've talked about the 8 core strategies of lead generation. I'm just gonna quickly revisit those so we can have context to this conversation. And then I'm gonna get into the important question that my group has been asking me. How do I pick the right lead generation strategies, and then how do I know when to move on to the next one? Before I do that, we need to define what lead generation actually is and what it isn't. See, most people don't even know what lead generation is, believe it or not. They don't know how to define it. And so I'm going to define that very clearly so we have context on how we truly answer this question. So what lead generation is, it's when you've generated a lead with somebody who's actually interested in doing business with you. What lead generation is not, it's not data that you purchased where you have no idea if they're interested in your service at all. Also, what lead generation is not is somebody that you expect is ready to do business with you right then and there, because the reality is that most leads that you generate in some way, shape, or form are going to need some sort of nurturing. So what lead generation is, at the core of its definition, and has been around for centuries, is identifying somebody who is interested, who expressed interest in your service. So we're going to run with that definition here today. And around that definition, we're going to dive into the 8 core strategies. So the first one is warm outreach. This is where you take your sphere of influence and you put it in your database, and you organize your database, and you come up with a strategy to nurture and develop a relationship and stay in touch with your sphere of influence with the goal to generate a lead from your sphere. The next one is organic, where this is where you develop content either through search engine optimization, blogs, social media, and through that organic content, your goal is to generate interest, is to generate a lead, whether it be through your social media or search engines, et cetera, et cetera. The next is paid traffic. This is where you're actually paying for somebody to opt into your page or one of your vendors' pages that you're paying for to generate you a lead. The next one is cold outreach. This is where yourself or an inside sales team reaches out to a list of leads that is cold. You do not know if they're interested in your service, and your goal is to identify a true bona fide opportunity or a lead. The next one after that is referral marketing. This is where you look at referral marketing and you make sure that everyone in your sphere of influence and your current and past clients knows about your referral program. Very, very important to scale. The next one after that is looking at vendor partners and understanding that vendor partner relationships are really important. On the vendor side, you should be doing events with vendor partners, networking with them, doing different events, so on and so forth, to make sure that you drive traffic and drive leads through vendor partners and you can exchange business. The partner side could be like a home builder or somebody that's more of an enterprise account that drives business consistently towards your business. That's what I mean by vendor partners. And then lastly is actually maturing and growing your sales team, what we would call it in real estate agent attraction. And if you break down these fundamentals, it puts you in a position where you will build and grow a dynamic business. And there's a bonus one that most people don't talk about, and this is the 8th one. This is where you actually go back and you purchase other people's old leads, or you take old leads in your database that you have not been paying attention to, and you revive them, and you do follow-up campaigns. And it's technically might not be considered lead generation, but I put it in that category because it's the most powerful way in today's market to generate business. So with that context, the question is how do you pick what one or which ones you're gonna master first? Let's tackle that question now. Diving into this, the first big question is your budget. And a lot of people ask me, they're like, hey, Isaiah, what should I be doing for my lead generation? And my first question back to them is like, what the hell is your budget? Because the reality is that my budget's different than your budget, and your budget's different than the person that's been in business for 10 years versus the person that's been in business for 1 year. So the first thing you have to do is have to say, what is your budget allocation? So usually, like if you're a newer business or you're a newer agent, you're not gonna have as much money to do paid ads, so you might have to start off with warm, like working warm traffic. And I would like to state this, no matter what your budget is, the first thing that you should get down is organizing your database, staging it out, building your pipelines, and making sure that you're reaching out to your sphere of influence consistently with a technology-enabled platform. If you're not doing that, okay, you're not building the right foundation with your lead generation strategy. So that should come first, no matter what your budget is. That's got to be the first one. But behind that, then you ask yourself, okay, well, with my budget, what can I do? The next factor is your target audience, because the reality is that if your target audience is better reached and harder to find because you're niche, harder to find on social media, and be really, really hard to find them because you're so niche, then you might not want to start off there. You might want to start off by purchasing a select group of data, right? Like, for example, let's say your niche is probate, or let's say your niche is for sale by owners, right? It might be hard to reach them just by doing only organic social media. So you might have to purchase data and then come up with a strategy to reach out to that cold data through cold outreach. So a lot of it depends on what your target audience is, how narrow it is, and the best way to reach them. The next one is your technology capabilities. So for example, if you have the ability to be able to do multi-channel marketing from your CRM, then it's going to be a lot easier to pretty much do most of these strategies versus if you are just doing one-to-one outreach. So you have to have the technological capabilities to be able to execute on different lead generation strategies. The next factor behind that is your time commitment. So for an example, if no matter what lead generation strategy you're going to do, it's going to require a time commitment, but some might commit more than others. So for example, if I'm using a cold outreach strategy and I'm gonna have to commit to prospecting, or my team's gonna have to commit to prospecting a lot longer than me doing a video like I'm doing with you now, and then having the marketing team chop that video up into different pieces of content and then dispersing that video, assuming that would be my primary source of lead generation. And I'm not saying that it should be, which I'm going to get to in a minute, but just giving you an example of why time and commitment is so important with whatever lead generation strategy that you're doing. The next factor is your skills and expertise. What I recommend is that you lead with your skills and expertise first, and then you build into your other lead generation strategies once your skills and expertise have shown that you can not only capture leads, generate leads, but convert those leads. And now you take your extra cash flow and you build into other lead generation strategies, which I'm going to talk about that in a minute as well. And then your goals. What are you looking to accomplish? Meaning, like, whatever lead generation strategy that you're leaning towards, it has to have enough leads coming in to actually hit your goals. And this is going to determine whether you should do one strategy or 2 or 3 at the same time. Because the reality is, if you don't have enough leads coming in, how the hell are you going to hit your transaction goal? It's not possible, right? And then after that is the channels of marketing that you have the capability to reach out to, which kind of ties into technology. Is technology and the channels that you have to be able to do the marketing is super important. And then compliance and regulations. you have to make sure that you're following compliance and regulations and factoring that into whatever lead generation strategy that you're doing, and make sure you can adhere to them. And with that, on top of all of that, the most important thing that you need to be doing is making sure that you're tracking your KPIs. You're managing and measuring each lead generation source. And so depending on how good of a job that you are at tracking your KPIs might alter what you choose to do first. So for example, if you're spending a lot of money on paid traffic or paid ads, but you're horrible at tracking your metrics, you might not want to do paid ads because you're going to have to track your ROI because you got a lot of dollars going out. Or you might want to track how effective your paid ads are doing. So with that said, I hope that gives you some good context on how to choose what lead generation strategies are right for you. Now, the next question is, how do I know when to move on, and what combination should I do? So I'm going to break this down based on a recommendation in my experience with working with thousands of business owners, realtors, and loan officers across the country, a good starting point. The first starting point is warm traffic. From there, depending on your budget limitations, organic traffic is virtually only the cost of your time and your attention, and your ability to be able to produce good content. Once your budget frees up, I recommend going to paid ads, and or if you have the skill set, moving into cold traffic or hiring an inside sales agent to help you follow up with your lead generation. From there, the key is follow up and making sure that you're looking at the bonus one and making sure that you have really amazing follow-up, because the fortune is in the follow-up. We've heard that a million different times. The reality is that if you're not following up, it's going to be very, very difficult to ever turn those leads into closings. So with that said, from that point of assuming that your follow-up is there, what you want to do is then look into some other more advanced forms of marketing, like vendor partnerships, like building your real estate team, and some of the other ones that I mentioned. So that would be the order. And then how do you know when to move on? That's the last question, is how do you know when to move on? Well, when you're seeing meaningful results and you've kind of got it to the point where you have consistency, now you know it's time to move on and master the next lead generation strategy. And the fun thing is that you kind of can turn this into a game. And this is actually something that my marketing coordinator came up with, which I loved, is she kind of related it to football, where the reality is that every football team functions differently. Meaning like how the Patriots run their plays is very different than the Buffalo Bills. How the Chargers run their plays is very different than San Francisco. So they all have a framework and they all have rules they follow. Just like there's best practices with lead generation, your framework or the core strategies are the 8 that I gave you, right? Just like football has its guidelines. Within those guidelines, they're going to come up with different ways to win the game. And that's how they feel like, based on with their strategies, their budget, their talent, their skills, they feel like they've come up with the best plan to win games and then get to the Super Bowl. And it's going to be the same thing for you. It's up to you to figure out how to use your skills, your talents, your budget, your resources, and your commitment level to come up with the best lead generation strategy to grow your business. And if you like this video, I took an even deeper dive into this into a private mastermind call that I want to share with you, and you can keep watching this video to literally take such an incredibly deep dive, and you can hear live from my clients on what we're talking about when it comes to lead generation and how to make these strategies work. I highly suggest you watch this video. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this clip. And if you want to get access to my book, that's coming out in like 6 months or so, then what you do to go to isaiahcolton.com and sign up to my newsletter, and you're going to be the first one to get access to my book on all things lead generation, where I take a deep dive into all 8 core strategies for your business. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Make sure you smash that button to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video.